Elon Musk buys Twitter and on October 28th walks into headquarters holding a sink. He proceeds to fire 3/4 of the workforce and then trolls all the Twitter fans and audience online for the next week. But then on October 4th, he does the Baron Funds Conference, who's a big investor of his, and he's totally chill and controlled. He has a Twitter space with advertisers where, again, he's super chill and controlled, but then flips in the next week and makes fun of those same advertisers. Then he flips back at a Neuralink press conference where, again, he's super calm and serious. How do we make sense of this erratic behavior? At first glance, it seems maybe even schizophrenic, and there are definitely people that think Elon Musk is losing his mind. But just because he's acting erratically doesn't mean he's lost touch with reality. In this video, I'll be building a picture of Elon Musk's psychology by looking at his patterns of behavior and tracing them back to his childhood, his parents, and his past experiences. We'll see that he's a very complex person, but that there are common themes in his behaviors, and they actually help us understand what's happening now and give us the ability to predict what might happen in the future. I might do another video in the future about my specific predictions about what might happen at Twitter and with Elon Musk more generally. For now, let's talk some Musk. Elon is a 1 in a billion genius, maybe even a 1 in 7 billion. You can say what you want about the guy, but his achievements are undeniably impressive. That said, he's still a human being like all of us, and he's formed by his life experiences for better and for worse. Those experiences create his personality, and that personality drives his decision-making going forward. A person's psychology can change throughout their lifetime, obviously, but there's always a common core that stays consistent. This was the insight behind Carl Jung's personality types, which later became the Myers-Briggs personality test. You might remember those 4 letters that tell you what personality type you are. Those are consistent throughout a lifetime, and they show up over and over again in the behavioral patterns that everyone has. So by looking for the common threads in Elon Musk's life, we can start to understand the deeper, unchanging parts of the core of his personality, and as a result, what those might mean in his future behavior. And just in case you're curious, his personality type is INTJ, introverted, intuitive, thinking, judging. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can read up on that if you want. The first thread is Asperger's.
I'm actually making history tonight as the first person with Asperger's to host SNL. Or at least the first to admit it.
This one is easy because he told us about it, and it goes a long way into explaining some of the insensitive things that he's been tweeting and the rage, fury, and hilarity that has ensued on the internet as a result. Asperger's is a collection of behaviors that often appear together. See how these compare to Elon Musk. Not understanding people's feelings or perspectives, check. Inappropriate social interactions, check. Obsessive learning around a handful of narrow subjects, check. Elon Musk has all of those things, and once we understand that, some of his behaviors don't feel that strange anymore. We see his Asperger's in his past as well, with his obsession with computers and programming as a kid, the story of him reading a Russian space manual at a PayPal party after it had been sold for $175 million, and the ultimatum he gave his wife when he said, "We either fix our marriage today or I divorce you tomorrow." Asperger's can be quite off-putting to a lot of people because we're used to having our feelings validated and acknowledged when we're in conversation with other people. But someone with Asperger's simply doesn't do that, and if we don't understand that they have it, it just comes across as purely insensitive. This is what we're seeing on Twitter. People are insulted and enraged by what he's saying, but he might just be trying to be playful and fun. Side note, this kind of insensitivity can be part of a narcissistic personality disorder, which I'll talk about a little bit later on with regards to Elon. But for the most part, Asperger's is worth talking about at the beginning because it does help explain a lot of the insensitive stuff that he's been doing. All right, let's move on to the next common thread.
I lived in the Fremont and Nevada factories for 3 years, fixing that production line, running around like a maniac through every part of that factory, living with the team. Yeah. I slept on the floor so that the team who was going through a hard time could see me on the floor, that they knew that I was not in some ivory tower. Whatever pain they experienced, I was I had it more.
Elon Musk famously works like crazy, sometimes 20 hours a day, sleeping on the factory floor at Tesla, in his office. He is always on. He's even said, maybe jokingly, maybe not, vacations will kill you. And that's actually based on a funny story from his past when a vacation actually almost killed him.
While in Africa, Musk contracted the most virulent version of malaria, falciparum malaria, which accounts for the vast majority of malaria deaths. It took Musk 6 months to recover. He lost 45 pounds over the course of the illness. "I came very close to dying," Musk said. "That's my lesson for taking a vacation. Vacations will kill you."
When you work as hard as Musk, you are making trade-offs and you're foregoing a lot of the things that usually lead to happiness in life. Friendships, family, time, if you have kids, watching them grow up, or just simply having time to do a hobby or do nothing or just relax. Some people do this unconsciously, but other people do it quite consciously. And I think Elon Musk is one of those people. He's a very rational guy, very thoughtful, and to achieve what he's trying to achieve on the scale that he's trying to do it, you just have to get shit done and you just have to work a lot.
Elon came to the conclusion early in his career that life is short, Straubel said. If you really embrace this, it leaves you with the obvious conclusion that you should be working as hard as you can. Suffering, though, has always been Musk's thing. The idea of work-life balance seems meaningless in this context.
And here's Chamath Palihapitiya talking about one of the trade-offs that Musk is certainly making and why he might have decided to make it.
Why do you think there's so few Elons?
It's an extremely lonely set of trade-offs. Because to your point, if you get tested, so if you think about it again probabilistically, there's 8 billion people in the world, maybe 50 of them get put in a position where they are building something of such colossal importance that they even have this choice. And then of that 50, maybe 10 of them are put in a moment where they actually have to make a trade-off. You know, you're not going to be able to see your family. I'm making this up. You're not going to be able to see your family. You're not, you're going to have to basically move into your factory. You're going to have to sleep on the floor. But here's the outcome: energy independence and, resource abundance and peace, a massive peace dividend. And then he says to himself, I don't know that he did because I've never had this conversation. Yeah, you know what? That's worth it. And then you look at your kids and you're like, I'm making this decision. I don't know how to explain that to you.
Yeah.
You want to be in that position?
Most people, when they make it rich, and he's the richest man in the world at the time I'm recording this, they slow down, they relax, and they enjoy the fruits of their labor. But he just keeps going. You can also feel that this is a great burden that he carries. You can see this in some interviews when he lets his guard down. It almost brings him to tears.
But there's not a million Elon Musks. There's one, motherfucker. Do you think about that? Or you just try to not?
I don't think you'd necessarily want to be me.
What's the worst part about you?
I don't think people would like it that much.
Well, most people wouldn't, but they can't be you. So that's like some superhero type shit.
It's this feeling of burden and this feeling of responsibility that he carries forward that is behind how hard he pushes himself and how hard he pushes everyone around him. People laughed and mocked him for the hardcore ultimatum that he gave to Twitter employees, telling them to either, get hardcore or take their severance package. But that's just the way he is, and he's always been and he always will be. He knows he won't be around for some of these bigger goals that he's trying to achieve.
If we don't improve our pace of progress, I'm definitely, going to be dead before we go to Mars. So I'm just would like to not be dead by the time we go to Mars. That's my aspiration here.
I get the feeling that Elon Musk doesn't even think what he's achieved to date is a big deal. People have built electric cars before, so that's nothing new. People have put rockets into space and men on the moon as well, so what's the big deal about that? This gives us a clue about his childhood, one where he wasn't accepted or loved enough, and therefore spends his entire life chasing that feeling of acceptance. It also brings us to the next common core or common thread in his personality. Consider all of Elon Musk's big projects, Tesla, SpaceX, and now Twitter. And you'll see the common thread is that he's always being the hero. With Tesla, he's saving the environment. With SpaceX, he's saving humanity by making it a spacefaring civilization. And with Twitter, he's saving free speech. Where does this need to be a hero come from? This is where we need to introduce a new character in the story, Elon Musk, Elon's father, who had an outsized effect on his personality, but not from the positive side. By all accounts, Elon Musk was a really bad man. Here's what Elon said about him in a 2017 interview with Rolling Stone. He was such a terrible human being. You have no idea. My dad will have a carefully thought out plan of evil. He will plan evil. Almost every crime you can possibly think of, he has done. Almost every evil thing you could possibly think of, he has done. It's so terrible. You can't believe it. So there's no question that there was some trauma that Elon Musk brought into the house. And although Elon Musk said that he never physically abused him, there was definitely abuse in the household. Here is Elon's mother, May Musk, talking about that.
I was beaten up, but the thing is, and you know, there was a saying in South Africa, when you get divorced, you stop falling in the shower, because every time you have a scene with bruises, you said you fell in the shower. Yeah, so it was a common saying in South Africa. When I was married, I was told about 3 times a day that I'm boring and stupid and, you know, and ugly. And if I protested, then I got beaten up. So I definitely never protested that.
Errol also admits it. He says, I was terrible. I screwed up the marriage. She won't speak to me or engage me if we're in the same room, which we have often been. Another quite remarkable thing is that Elon and Justine, his first wife, have resolved to never introduce their children. They have 5 children to his father. Imagine the kind of person that he imagines his father to be, that he would never even want his children to meet him. When Elon Musk was 8 years old, his parents divorced, and then when he was 10, he moved in with his father, feeling sorry for him. Here's another clip from that Rolling Stone interview. I felt sorry for my father because my mother had all 3 kids. Yeah, I was sad for my father, but I didn't really understand at the time what kind of person he was. It was not a good idea. This period as a 10-year-old is where Elon Musk's heroic drive may have been cemented. Alice Miller says in the excellent book called The Drama of the Gifted Child, throughout their lives, they will continue to look for what their own parents could not give them at the appropriate time. Without the ballast of the rest of his family, as Elon lived alone with his father, he probably bore the brunt of his father's meanness and anger and all those horrible things that he talked about in that Rolling Stone interview. You can imagine a young Elon, 10 years old, terrified as a child as his father does or says some horrible things to him and just praying for a hero to come rescue him, a hero that never arrives. He spends the rest of his life trying to be that hero that he once needed. Children who are experiencing an adult that is aggressive or mean or violent are feeling that very intensely. A child is too small and doesn't know enough to be able to handle that situation. And that intensity of emotion often gets repressed, and it comes out as different psychological complexes that play out throughout the rest of their lives as adults. Alice Miller says again here, every childhood's traumatic experiences remain hidden and locked in darkness, and the key to our understanding of the life that follows is hidden away with them. These complexes haunt us as adults and play out in the rest of our lives. So people that grew up without money are always looking for financial security. People who grew up without one parent or another are always looking for that mother or father figure. And people who grew up without love are always looking to do things to gain the love and acceptance from someone or all of the world. These are the most powerful internal forces that human beings experience, which is why you'll often find traumatic childhood experiences in the most driven people. That little boy who needed a hero is still in Elon Musk, and he always will be on some level. You can see this as he gets emotional during a 60 Minutes interview.
Now is the time to overrule this administration's pledge to mediocrity.
You know, there are American heroes who don't like this idea. Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan have both testified against commercial spaceflight and the way that you're developing it, and I wonder what you think of that.
I was very sad to see that because those guys are, those guys are heroes of mine, so it's really tough. I wish they would come and visit and see the hardware that we're doing here. And I think that would change their mind.
They inspired you to do this, didn't they?
Yes.
And to see them casting stones in your direction.
It's difficult.
Did you expect them to cheer you on?
Certainly hoping they would.
The boy's first hero is his father, but Elon didn't have that. So he looked outside for his heroes, to guys like Cernan and Armstrong. But in this moment, they attacked and abandoned him just like his father did, and proved to him once again that only he could be his own hero, and that he was all alone. And that brings us to the next common thread. For all his joking and optimism, Elon Musk has a dark side, one where he feels small and the world feels bleak, the same feelings he had as a child growing up. And he shows that dark side many times. One of the most memorable ones was his first interview with Joe Rogan.
Yeah, like what are the set of things that can be done to make the future better? So I think that a future where we are a spacefaring civilization and out there among the stars, this is very exciting. This makes me look forward to the future. This makes me want that future. There need to be things that make you look forward to waking up in the morning. You wake up in the morning, you look forward to the day, you look forward to the future. In a future where we are a spacefaring civilization and out there among the stars, I think that's very exciting. That is a thing we want.
He also shows it in this beautiful, haunting image that he paints when he's asked why human beings should become a spacefaring civilization.
All of human civilization is a blink of an eye, if there was an eye, on an evolutionary timescale. So I think it's important we take the actions to ensure that the light of consciousness continues, and because we should really view consciousness as a small candle in a vast darkness, and it could easily go out.
And this one from the Babylon Bee.
I don't know. It's like, where are the aliens? Like, maybe there aren't any in this galaxy, and maybe what we have here is a very, very rare situation. A brief flickering of consciousness in the dark, like a little candle in a vast darkness, and we should not let that little candle go out.
I love how uncomfortable that whole table gets after he goes down that dark rabbit hole. This image of a small light in a vast darkness clearly resonates with Elon, and it's quite a sad image. You actually get the feeling that he thinks that the whole world, all of Earth, is bleak and hopeless, and that maybe that there's some new hope out amongst the stars. People who don't feel hopeless don't speak like this. Someone who's never had trouble getting out of bed isn't even aware that other people do. These moments give us a glimpse into Elon's internal struggle. The look on his face is pained and gives us a sense that he's carrying a great burden, which brings us to the next common thread. Elon has said this many times. Here's his wife, Justine, from a TED Talk in 2017.
So when I was preparing this talk, I said to Elon, so do you have any advice that I can maybe give to bright young things in the audience who might want to grow up to be you one day? And he did say something, which I'll get to at the end. But he also said, I don't know if they would still want that, if they really knew what it's like to be me.
Think about what it must be like to live a life that you would never wish on anyone else. This is no one's goal. Most people in this situation would make serious changes, not double down. This is a picture of someone who has never felt at peace with themselves. Children that have been unconditionally loved by their parents just feel good as they are wherever they are. Those who have not feel this constant sense of dread, that they're never good enough, that they're not doing something right. They spend their lives trying to prove that they are, but that feeling never goes away. However, paradoxically, it's also one of the ingredients to achieving something extraordinary.
Is there times when you just sacrifice your own personal happiness for a bigger thing that you've created?
Yeah, if you're in a position to do it, I think some folks are tested. Elon is probably the best example, and it must be really, really hard to be him. Really hard. I have enormous levels of empathy and care for him.
I couldn't agree more with Chamath. I would definitely not want to trade places with Elon. There's a bit of bullying and viciousness in Elon Musk, almost bordering on sadistic.
At their wedding reception, Justine encountered the other side of the conquering hero. Musk pulled Justine close while they danced and informed her, "I am the alpha in this relationship." 2 months later, Justine signed a post-nuptial financial agreement that would come back to haunt her, and entered into an enduring power struggle. He was constantly remarking on the ways he found me lacking. "I am your wife," I told him repeatedly, "not your employee." "If you were my employee," he said just as often, "I would fire you."
There's also this one about how he fired Mary Beth Brown, his 12-year-long executive assistant who was practically like family.
The granddaddy example of Musk's seemingly callous interoffice style occurred in early 2014, when he fired Mary Beth Brown. To describe her as a loyal executive assistant would be grossly inadequate. For more than a decade, she gave up her life for Musk, traipsing back and forth between Los Angeles and Silicon Valley every week, while working late into the night and on weekends. Brown went to Musk and asked that she be compensated on par with SpaceX's top executives, since she was handling so much of Musk's scheduling across 2 companies, doing public relations work, and often making business decisions. Musk replied that Brown should take a couple of weeks off, and he would take on her duties and gauge how hard they were. When Brown returned, Musk let her know that he didn't need her anymore, that Musk was willing to let Brown go, and in such an unceremonious fashion, struck people inside SpaceX and Tesla as scandalous, and as the ultimate confirmation of his cruel stoicism. The tale of Brown's departure became part of the lore around Musk's lack of empathy.
And most recently, how he's treated employees at Twitter by firing them without notice or explanation. Some of these things can be attributed to his Asperger's and simply not knowing how people are going to feel when he does these things. Others can be attributed to not wanting to waste time and suffer fools, similar to how Steve Jobs did, who also has a set of really unflattering stories about his harsh dealings with people. But the most charitable take is imagining a young Elon who experienced a similar cruelty from his father and who is now playing it out on other people that he has power over. This is a common phenomenon from Alice Miller. They, the adults, encounter their own humiliating past in the child's eyes, and they ward it off with the power they now have. Miller is writing specifically about children, but the same applies to any situation where there's a power dynamic, whether from parent to child or from Elon to employee. All of this is clearly a character flaw, but not surprising at all. Elon Musk's father shows many of the traits of a malignant narcissist, the worst kind. Self-importance, need for power and success, willingness to exploit relationships, and a lack of empathy. Growing up with a narcissistic parent often creates children who are also narcissists. This is because the lack of empathy and self-centeredness and scorn of the parents make the children feel unvalued and unheard. And children facing those emotions need to create an inflated persona to cope with those crushing feelings that they're unequipped to handle at their young age. It's worth noting that some amount of narcissism is healthy and normal in everybody. In other words, you should have some self-interest and self-regard about yourself. The question is, does Elon Musk have an unhealthy amount like his father did? And in my opinion, he doesn't. All the behaviors we saw earlier can be attributed to other things. So his lack of empathy can be attributed to his Asperger's, his exploiting of relationships. That can be subjective, but also can be connected to just wanting to move things forward and not worrying too much about people's feelings because he's got this mission to do. And his high regard for himself, I mean, to me, that feels like it's quite earned. He has achieved quite a bit and done a lot more than many people. So it would be normal if he felt himself to be quite good and quite capable as a person. But Elon was lucky, and things might not have turned out this way had it not been for his mother, May, who was very loving and had a great relationship with all the siblings. And she became the counterbalance to the father's malignant personality and gave Elon the emotions and the tools that enabled him to get as far as he's gotten. She was possibly the hinge that his life turned on to set it in its current direction. So there we have a picture of Elon Musk, a bright boy with Asperger's, predisposed to intense study and focus, growing up in a traumatic home where he was forced to further go inside and intensify his inner world and his learning. A malignant father that was unloving, that gave him the intense drive to become a hero that he once needed, but also a very loving mother that kept him connected to his emotions and away from that selfish sociopathy and still focused on what's best for humanity. If any of these ingredients were different, we wouldn't be talking about Elon Musk right now. In the process of researching this, I actually have grown a new appreciation for him. He's definitely got his flaws and his quirks, but so do all of us. And the trick to living a good life is actually learning how to make the best of those and not let them hold us back too much. If you'd like to hear how I think his personality might influence him in general going forward, or Twitter more specifically, stay tuned to this channel. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Ciao.
Oh my God. Do you see them both line up?
Inside shut down. Inside boosters.